He was a successful businessman who finally found the woman of his dreams.
They were very much in love.
Will you marry me?
They were just enjoying the honeymoon phase.
But their happily ever after is cut short by gunshots in the dead of the night.
I heard pops like a light caliber gun going off.
There was screaming, shots fired.
People were afraid.
The brutal shooting leaves police and family grasping for answers.
There were no obvious suspects.
She kept saying he's a good man, a good husband.
But as the case unfolds, sinful secrets emerge.
They found a revolver tucked into a box of baby wipes. They're forced to rethink everything.
Was this really a random act of violence?
I knew for a fact something wasn't right.
Or is something more sinister afoot?
A few weeks ago, their home was broken into.
She found the kilo of cocaine in the house, and there were condoms in his truck.
Something that's his or yours?
No, they're his.
I didn't believe it.
It's hard to believe that someone would be capable of something like this.
Oh, God, I'm scared.
August 2006. It's a sweltering summer in Jacksonville, a bustling beach town along Florida's Atlantic coast.
Jacksonville is a wonderful city. It's multicultural, vibrant, military-friendly.
It's the best of both worlds. It's the largest city in Florida, but it also has that hometown southern feel.
But even a place known for its southern hospitality isn't immune to deadly violence.
On August 21st, in the early hours of the morning, a flurry of 911 calls came in.
Jacksonville 911.
One of the callers is 47-year-old Freddie Zarang.
Yes, ma'am. The police need to come and check something out at the end of Highgate Drive.
I guess it was probably somewhere around 12:45, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I heard what sounded like 3 or 4 shots.
I heard pops, like as if like a light caliber gun going off, and I can't see much, but it looks like something crawling in the middle of the cul-de-sac, like somebody's actually laying there injured.
As police prepare to respond to Freddie's call, another 911 call comes in from a neighbor of his, Noni Stinson.
This is 911 guys.
Yes, sir. I need an officer to come. I woke up to like 2 loud bangs. Oh, God, I'm scared.
Just calm down, okay?
I'm trying, sir.
There were various different reports of an individual down, shots fired. It was a Tier 1 response for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
Officers speed to the upscale gated neighborhood on Jacksonville's south side.
It was a shock because that's an area you could go years without a crime happening.
Once they arrive on scene, police rush to the victim's aid.
I noticed the victim in the cul-de-sac in a pool of blood, but there was nobody else around at all. There was a lot of blood around his chest and some on his face. And I thought, well, somebody just shot this man.
The victim is still conscious, but barely.
It's got a pulse. It's weak, but it's a pulse.
He was alive and coherent, but I could tell he wasn't in very good shape at the time.
He was at least able to tell the police his name, Solomon Stinson.
Their very first priority was to provide medical aid. Immediately, they called for paramedics.
A weak pulse. Go ahead and start EMS. Tell them to step it up, please.
29-year-old Solomon Stinson always put family first.
Solomon grew up as one of 4 children on the east side of Jacksonville.
We grew up poor. We didn't have like a lot of materialistic things that other kids had, but we had lots of love.
He was real playful, real friendly. He was just fun to be around.
He was trying to please everybody, even when he didn't have to. He always just wanted everybody to be happy.
When Solomon reached his teenage years, he fathered a baby girl with his high school sweetheart.
Even though Solomon's relationship did not last, he still stayed in his daughter's life.
The two continued to remain great parents to their daughter and make sure that she was well taken care of.
After fathering a son with another girlfriend in 2002, Solomon dedicated himself to giving his kids the life they deserved.
He always had dreams, and he was a go-getter.
Solomon became an entrepreneur where he started his own business. He opened up a car wash. He also had a landscaping business as well.
Running multiple businesses left Solomon little time for love, until a beautiful stranger named Noni Allen walked into his life.
Hey.
How can I help you today?
Just a regular car wash.
Okay, well, you came to the right place.
Noni met Solomon at the car wash that he owned when she was getting her car cleaned. The two started talking. They really hit it off.
Thank you. All right, well, you can just have a seat over there. I'm gonna grab your car and take care of that for you, and I'll bring them back when it's done, okay?
Okay, thank you, Solomon.
Thank you.
Upon cleaning her car, he left his phone number in her middle console. She thought, why not, and gave him a call.
A week later, Solomon and Noni were on their first date.
They ended up talking late into the night.
You just seem like such a great dad.
Thank you. I do what I can.
I get it.
They really seemed to click, and they realized that they really had a lot in common. Solomon learned that Noni was a single mom in graduate school studying psychology.
Between school, these kids, it never gets easy.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Solomon was really impressed to learn that Noni had made the dean's list every single semester and really worked hard to make sure that she provided for her child.
My brother liked the fact that she was educated, she was family-oriented, and she seemed like she was a go-getter like him.
But Solomon also learned that things weren't easy for a single mother trying to earn her degree.
Noni did express to Solomon that she still had great financial struggles. Because Solomon has always been known to want to try to help other people, before they parted ways, that even if he offered her a few $100s.
There you go.
You do not have to do that.
I insist. You deserve it.
Thank you.
Of course.
And that's when Noni realized she had met her Prince Charming.
Someone that could be a really great provider and also a great partner for life.
It didn't take long for the couple's relationship to blossom into a true partnership.
They were both very much in love. When Solomon proposed to Noni, she did not hesitate to say yes.
Will you marry me?
Yes, of course. Oh my gosh.
She was very elated and getting ready to spend their forever together.
Noni and her daughter moved in with Solomon.
The couple pledged their love to one another in a joyful ceremony, surrounded by friends and family.
They were just enjoying the honeymoon phase of their marriage, and it wasn't before long before they learned that they would be welcoming a new baby boy.
When he found out that he was having a son, he was very excited.
After the birth of their new baby, Solomon and Noni also purchased a new home.
They found a 2,200 square foot home in one of Jacksonville's nicest neighborhoods.
Years of hard work had really paid off for Solomon because he was finally able to move his family into a very safe and gated community.
They were a young, upwardly mobile couple. I was very impressed with them.
They was living the dream.
But now the Stinsons have been jolted out of their dream by the sound of gunshots in the gated community they call home.
Once police got on scene, they realized that Solomon has been shot twice, once in the neck and the other in the back.
He was covered in blood.
But he's still alive.
Paramedics were there very quickly, and Mr. Stinson was taken to the hospital.
They were doing everything they could to stabilize him until they could get to the ER.
It quickly becomes a race against time to save his life.
When 29-year-old Solomon Stinson met a gorgeous, hardworking single mom named Noni Allen, he knew he'd found his soulmate.
They really seemed to click and to have a lot of dreams and aspirations that were very parallel.
They were in love. They wanted to spend the rest of their lives together.
By the summer of 2006, Solomon and Noni had gotten married, had a child, and moved into an upscale home in one of Jacksonville's nicest neighborhoods.
The people of the neighborhood were all family-oriented. It was just a nice community to be in.
Solomon was determined to provide a good life for his growing family and willing to put in the hard work.
But now, Solomon has been found lying in a pool of blood outside his home.
He had been shot 2 times.
He was quickly taken into an ambulance and rushed to the nearest hospital.
As Solomon's life hangs in the balance, Jacksonville police speak with his traumatized wife, Noni.
She was obviously distraught, as any spouse would be.
Noni says when she made the call to 911 earlier, she didn't realize the gunshots she heard were directed at her husband.
Oh my God, is he gonna be okay? Is he gonna be okay?
We'll let you know as soon as we hear an update from the hospital.
She couldn't understand who would do anything like this to him. She kept saying he's a good man, a good husband, a good father.
Officers needed to calm her down before she was ready to give a statement.
While officers console Noni, Jacksonville detectives arrive and begin trying to piece together what happened.
Investigators immediately notice a trail of blood leading from Stinson's driveway out into the street.
That was a strong indicator that the actual shooting occurred in the driveway closer to the house.
Police also located a bullet fragment from a .38 caliber handgun. The fragment was laying near where Solomon's body was found.
But they did not discover any shell casings. This indicated that the killer either used a revolver or policed up their shell casings after the shooting.
Based on the physical evidence, investigators wonder if Solomon was the victim of a drive-by shooting.
The blood spatter tracking went from the house to the street.
But why would someone want to target a loving father like Solomon?
Solomon's reputation in the community points to one potential explanation.
Solomon was known to be successful, financially speaking, so maybe someone came after him for his money.
I thought somebody maybe had followed him home that night and robbed him.
But as the first responders continue to assess the crime scene, that motive appears less plausible.
The initial responding officers noted that he had on expensive jewelry and he had a significant amount of cash on him that was still there.
That would pretty much immediately rule out robbery as a motive for this crime.
Detectives believe that this looks more like a targeted hit.
But who's behind it? Unfortunately, none of Solomon's neighbors have any guesses.
One of the 911 callers, Freddie Zerain, was not able to get a good look at the shooter.
Tell us what you saw. I didn't see anything. I heard the gunshot, and that's when I called 911.
They wanted to know exactly what I had witnessed, and I explained to them that it was mostly audible. I couldn't see because it just wasn't a lot of light there.
Initially, there were no obvious suspects. There wasn't a whole lot to go on.
Detectives are hopeful that Solomon's wife, Noni, may be able to give them the answers they're looking for.
We've just been trying to play catch up to find out exactly what happened tonight. Can you tell me what happened?
I was asleep and I heard bam, bam. I got up, my daughter was like hiding in the hallway, so then she heard a noise.
The sound of the shots were so close, it terrified Noni. So she started looking out the windows.
At first, Noni says she didn't notice anything suspicious.
I came up here and looked out, I didn't see anything.
But then her daughter told her Daddy was shot.
He was like, Daddy was shot, and I heard him say, ow.
Your 8-year-old daughter said she heard your husband say, ow.
That's when she really started to panic.
Noni was surprised by what her daughter said because she didn't think her husband was home.
He had left the house about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and he had not returned by the time she had gone to sleep.
At that point, she knew that something wasn't right, and she called 911 for help.
No. Oh, God, I'm scared.
When detectives asked Noni where Solomon had been that day, she says he probably was hanging out with some friends.
What friends did he normally be out with?
So I really don't know a lot of his friends. I know he hangs with a guy named, they call him Monster.
It isn't much to go on, but as investigators wrap up the interview, Noni is overcome by emotion.
She was shaking. She was scared.
And she reveals that there's a surprising reason why she kept her distance from Solomon's friends.
She offers up a new, shocking piece of information.
She informed the officers that her husband had a prior record.
Noni reports that her husband is a convicted felon and a drug dealer.
After a young father and entrepreneur named Solomon Stinson was gunned down outside his Jacksonville home, local police are struggling to account for the brutal crime.
It didn't make sense. Everybody loved him.
At this point, police were needing more information, and they were hoping that they could find more information by speaking with Solomon's wife, Noni.
Now, Noni has revealed a surprising new piece of information about her husband.
Noni says her husband is a convicted felon and a drug dealer.
Investigators realize Noni's statement could be the key to unlocking this crime.
Drug business goes hand in hand with violence and firearms.
Maybe this was a drug deal gone bad. Maybe this was a retaliation or a hit.
But before investigators can dig deeper, they receive a phone call about Solomon's condition.
They heard from the hospital that Solomon Stinson hadn't survived. At that point, it became a homicide investigation.
Ma'am, sorry to tell you, but Solomon didn't make it.
When police told Noni that Solomon did not survive, she collapsed to the ground.
She was completely overwhelmed with emotion.
Solomon's family is just as devastated when they receive the tragic news.
When I got that phone call, I just was like, dropped to my knees. I wouldn't have thought in a million years the reality of it.
It was a tragedy. I just cried that whole night. It's unbelievable. You know, everyone was hurt, devastated.
Investigators know they need to act quickly in order to bring Solomon's killer to justice.
Police then gave Noni a moment to, grieve her husband and collect herself before taking her to the station for a more formal interview.
There, they implore her to tell them everything she knows about Solomon's illegal activities.
She was almost certain that he had been dealing drugs for quite some time. Years, in fact.
I mean, just because the crowd of people he hangs with, stays out late, the money, a lot of cash.
A lot of cash and no accountability for the cash.
Yeah.
Noni says when she confronted Solomon about her suspicions, it didn't go well.
What's his reaction?
He was like, it's his business, and just...
It becomes your business too, your husband and wife.
This was actually such an area of contention in their relationship that it led to them splitting up.
That's one of the reasons why we separated.
How long were y'all separated?
A year and a half.
But eventually the couple reconciled.
They had gotten back together recently because Solomon had informed her that he had straightened up his act.
He kind of led me to believe that, he stopped.
Now, Noni believes Solomon's promise was a lie.
Noni suspected that he was still lying and that he was still engaging in activities that he should not have been.
Noni reported a few weeks ago their home was broken into.
She felt that that was proof positive that Solomon was still involved in the drug trade.
But Noni says drugs weren't the only problem in their relationship.
Noni goes on to report that she was a victim of domestic violence from her husband.
You ever get arrested for that?
Every time.
How many times?
I think it was twice.
And to make matters worse, Noni also suspected that he was cheating on her.
She claimed that she found a box of condoms in his truck.
Condoms in the truck glove box?
Yeah.
I'm an equal opportunity interviewer, so are those his or yours?
No, they're his.
Detectives end their interview with Noni, stunned by what they've learned.
If what Noni is saying is true, there could be multiple people who would like to see Solomon dead.
From a scorned mistress to a rival drug dealer.
At this point, the investigators really had their work cut out for them.
Armed with a more complete picture of Solomon's past, detectives returned to the scene of the crime.
Police received permission from Noni to search her and Solomon's home in order to see if there were clues to what happened to Solomon inside.
Miss Stinson said you can search the house anywhere you like.
At first glance, nothing sticks out.
When police initially went inside, it looked like a typical suburban home.
But they soon begin to uncover evidence of Solomon's criminal behavior.
In a dresser drawer, they discovered high-caliber rifle rounds.
Then they found a revolver tucked into a box of baby wipes.
The weapon and the ammunition were sent out for ballistics testing.
But it's what police find in a spare bedroom that leads them to think they're on the right track.
Underneath a mattress, they believe they've found what might have sparked this crime.
More than 4 pounds of pure cocaine.
Jacksonville police investigating the death of 29-year-old Solomon Stinson have just made an alarming discovery inside his home. 2 kilos of pure cocaine.
Detectives know that it's worth thousands of dollars and could definitely be a motive for the murder.
This seemed even more probable based upon the fact that their home had just recently been burglarized.
Detectives theorize that Solomon may have surprised the would-be robbers, prompting them to shoot him and flee.
Detectives thought that maybe the assailants were caught off guard by Solomon being outside.
And instead of finishing the job, they killed him before police arrived.
Hoping to drum up leads, investigators turned to their network of street informants.
They started putting out feelers, hey, have you heard any information about someone planning a burglary on the south side?
And before long, tips start rolling in.
Homicide.
One potentially credible tip came in that Solomon was murdered because he had ripped off one of his suppliers.
They received another tip that stated that he was killed over a drug disconnect with a guy named One-Eyed Tony.
Could One-Eyed Tony be the same man Noni mentioned in her interview that she only knew by the name Macho?
Police really struggled to identify who this One-Eyed Tony could be.
Solomon's phone records failed to provide any help.
Unfortunately, that lead was promising at its inception, quickly turned into a dead end.
More than 24 hours after Solomon was killed, the investigation comes to a standstill. But that changes when a new witness comes forward.
Can I sit there?
Investigators speak to Solomon's sister, Amanda. They learn some new surprising information.
I did tell the detective, something ain't right. I believe that this has nothing to do with the drug dealing.
Amanda's suspicions revolve around someone else, someone much closer to her brother.
I told him to look at Noonie Stimson. I believe she's the killer.
Could Solomon's doting wife, the same wife who collapsed to the ground at the news of his death, really be the one who pulled the trigger?
For me to speak that, it was the hardest thing for me to do, but I know I needed to say it because it wasn't adding up. Just all the arrows were pointing at her.
Amanda lays out exactly why she suspects Noni.
It's just the way she's been behaving. It's not normal.
What do you mean by not normal?
The way she was acting, it wasn't matching up. It wasn't no emotions, it wasn't no feelings. I knew for a fact something wasn't right.
Noni would not let her come over anymore and spend time with her.
I knew she was keeping something from me. The more questions I began to ask her, the more she started to pull away.
Hey, I came to check on you. I've been calling you.
Sorry, just been going through a lot lately.
Another concerning note was the fact that Noni was trying to schedule the funeral immediately before Solomon's family members could make it into Jacksonville.
We need to plan this funeral.
How can somebody pass away on a Monday and you trying to bury him on a Wednesday? We was trying to get family come in from out of town to come to the funeral. They couldn't even make it. That's how quick she was still trying to bury him.
Listen, Amanda, we just need to get it over with, okay?
Most disturbing of all is a rumor Amanda heard spreading among Solomon's friends and family.
She had heard that Noni was planning to leave the city any day now.
It was like she was trying to pack up and rush to go out of town so quickly.
I'm telling you, she's about to take off.
Where's she going?
I don't know. But you guys need to find her and get her before she leaves.
All of these actions made her feel suspicious about Noni and what happened that night.
Detectives find it hard to square what they're hearing from Solomon's sister with what they know about Noni.
Based upon the information they had so far, they had no reason to believe that Noni could have done something like this.
During their interview, she was open and honest about saying that she and Solomon had issues that they were trying to work through.
Investigators had no reason to doubt Noni's story. She appeared to be forthcoming with them.
However, a call from the state crime lab will change everything investigators thought they knew about Noni Stinson.
When the police searched the Stinsons' home, they found a revolver tucked underneath some baby wipes. They assumed it belonged to Solomon.
The crime lab results came back, and that .38 caliber revolver.
It indicated that the bullet fragments that were found next to Solomon's body and inside of his body were a match.
Noni had the murder weapon the whole time.
homicide investigators in North Florida were all but certain that Solomon Stinson was murdered by a rival drug dealer who was out to get him.
One of their contacts says that Solomon was killed because he failed to pay his supplier for drugs.
But now new evidence suggests that Solomon may have been targeted by someone closer to home.
Solomon's sister informed them they should be focusing their attention on his wife Noni as a suspect.
The gun that killed Solomon was in the home the entire time.
She was the only one that had possession of the murder weapon.
That instantly makes Noni the prime suspect.
Based on the tip that Noni plans to flee Jacksonville as soon as possible, investigators don't waste any time bringing her in for another round of questioning.
And in the interrogation room, detectives start trying to pick Noni's story apart.
In her last interview, she said she thought Solomon was cheating on her. Could that be a motive here?
He was pissed off when he came home.
I didn't know when he came home that I was asleep.
Noni just continued to maintain her same story, that she was asleep and awakened at 1:30 by gunshot. When they confront her about the .38 revolver, Noni acts completely surprised by this.
Did you fire that gun?
No, sir.
Have you ever touched that gun?
No, sir.
Fingerprints aren't going to be on that gun?
No, sir.
She claims she didn't know the gun even existed.
At this point in the interrogation, the detectives directly asked her, "Did you murder your husband with that .38 caliber revolver?"
In a fit of anger, mad at him, banging somebody else coming in late at night?
Nope.
You shoot him with any gun?
No, sir.
Realizing that she's gone from a witness to a suspect, Noni asks for a lawyer.
I don't want to answer any more questions.
Okay.
Even without Noni's cooperation, detectives believe they are still close to cracking this case.
But they still need the hard evidence to prove it. So investigators take Noni's fingerprints.
Detectives compare her fingerprints to the prints that were on the murder weapon.
It's a match.
So after they get that bombshell evidence, they then decide to arrest her for the murder of her husband.
At this time, you're under arrest for fatally shooting Solomon Stinson.
Oh, God, Lord Jesus.
Detectives charge Noni with 1 count of murder and book her in the Duval County Jail.
News of her arrest comes as much-needed relief for Solomon's grieving loved ones.
When the police called me and told me, forgive my language, I was like, God, I'm so happy that that didn't get away.
We still couldn't believe it that it was her. You know, it's hard to believe that she would do something like that.
Now with the fingerprint evidence, this appears to be an open and shut case.
But Noni isn't done yet.
Noni Stinson presented a shocking new defense. She claimed that she did kill her husband, but she did so in self-defense.
In August of 2006, after Noni Stinson's fingerprints came back as a match to the gun that killed her husband, Jacksonville police charged her with murder.
At this time, you're under arrest for fatally shooting Solomon Stinson.
Oh, God, Lord Jesus.
In the detective's eyes, it's proof that she did kill Solomon.
But when Noni's trial begins 1 year after her arrest in August of 2007, her attorneys present a surprising defense.
Her attorney makes the case that she was a battered and abused woman who had no choice but to kill her husband.
She claimed that she shot him in self-defense.
To support their theory, Noni's attorneys point to the couple's history of violence.
Solomon had been arrested for domestic violence at least twice.
And in a bold move, Noni takes the stand to testify in her own defense.
Noni tells the jury that there was an argument. The argument began when she found the cocaine in the house.
What is this doing in our house, Solomon?
Where'd you get that?
What is this doing in our house, Solomon?
Are you crazy? Didn't I tell you stop going in my stuff?
What are you doing?
They started fighting and things escalated.
Cocaine, really?
She says Solomon pulled a gun on her.
Hey, in the house. Solomon, what is this?
I'm gonna teach you a lesson.
Solomon, wait.
Didn't I tell you not to talk to me like that?
Okay, Solomon.
Didn't I tell you?
Okay.
But instead of shooting her, he started punching her multiple times in the stomach.
In the midst of the struggle, Noni says she managed to pry the gun out of Solomon's hand.
She says she was able to grab the gun and then was able to fire 3 shots.
2 of those gunshots struck Solomon, and he then stumbled outside, where he was later found by police.
When she was questioned by law enforcement, Noni claimed she was too scared to tell the truth.
You shoot him with any gun.
No, sir.
She told the jurors that as a victim of domestic violence, that she had become accustomed to lying and covering up abuse, and so that the lying to law enforcement was second nature to her.
On the surface, Noni's story seems plausible, but prosecutors aren't convinced.
When the prosecution has an opportunity to rebut those arguments, they start to rip apart that defense piece by piece.
When I first observed Noni Stinson right after the incident, she did not appear to be harmed, or her clothing was not disheveled in any way that I could see. And the house did not look like there had been signs of any kind of struggle.
Prosecutors contend that Noni wasn't a battered woman. She was an angry one.
She was tired of him lying to her and cheating on her, and she had just had enough.
They believe that when Solomon pulled into the garage on that summer night in 2006, Noni was waiting for him.
When Solomon returned home, Noni informed Solomon that she was tired of his behavior.
What's up?
I can't believe you cheating on me again.
Cheating on me?
Solomon, I can't believe you cheating on me again.
What are you talking about?
You know what I'm talking about. Get off me. I saw the condoms in your car.
At that point is when she pulled out the .38 caliber gun.
Baby.
The prosecution points out that one of Noni's bullets struck Solomon in the back, suggesting that he was running away from her and not trying to attack her when she opened fire.
When both sides rest, the jury deliberates for several hours before returning with a verdict.
They found Noni Stinson guilty of murdering her husband. The judge sentenced her to 35 years in prison for second-degree murder.
I felt a sense of relief. She was going to be away for a long time.
But for Solomon's family, it's too little, too late.
I felt as if 35 wasn't good enough. You know, we wanted life because all the lies that was told on the stand, you know, trying to get out of something that you did.
I still say it should have been more time than what she got.
6 years later, it looks like Noni might be getting out sooner, much sooner.
The appellate court reversed her conviction, finding that the jury had been given faulty jury instructions.
We was like, are you kidding me? She finna get out? Everybody was just so upset.
In August of 2013, Noni's second trial gets underway.
She presented the same defense and the same arguments as in the first trial.
Noni Stinson doesn't get the results she was looking for, though.
Noni is convicted of killing her husband, but this time she was found guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter. He sentences her to 30 years in prison, just 5 years less than what she was sentenced to on the original charge.
When we heard them 30 years, it was like a relief because we thought she was getting out.
Now Solomon's loved ones are left to grapple with the aftershock of Noni's act of violence.
My brother never gonna see none of his kids grow up. They never gonna see their mama or daddy. She left an empty space in our family life as well as her own family life.
He had flaws. However, there were better ways that this situation could have been handled.
Anybody that never knew Solomon, he was a good man. I mean, he was funny, ambitious.
She vanished without a trace. 27 years later, a rusted barrel finally exposed the killer. The rain started slowly that night, creeping across the empty roads of Belridge like something alive. Thin silver lines slid beneath the streetlights, tapping softly against diner windows, washing over abandoned sidewalks and rusted mailboxes, while thunder rolled somewhere far beyond the forest. Nobody in town knew that within a few hours Belridge would become the center of a nightmare that refused to die for nearly 3 decades. Nobody knew a young woman was about to disappear so completely that even her shadow would seem erased from the earth. And nobody could have imagined that 27 years later, the secret buried beneath Blackwater Lake would finally rise back to the surface in a rusted steel barrel. At 11:38 p.m., Emily Grayson tied her apron behind the counter at Marcy's Diner and laughed at something one of the cooks said while wiping rainwater from the front window with a dirty rag. The diner smelled like coffee, fried onions, wet jackets, and cigarette smoke trapped deep inside the walls after years of overnight customers passing through town. Emily looked exhausted. She had worked a double shift. Her blonde hair was tied loosely behind her neck, strands falling over tired blue eyes as she counted tips beneath the register light. One waitress later told detectives Emily kept glancing outside toward the parking lot like she expected someone to be there. Another employee remembered Emily asking if anybody could walk her to her car because the storm felt strange. Not dangerous, just strange. Uneasy, like someone was watching. Nobody walked her out. At 11:43 p.m., Emily stepped into the rain alone. Those were the last confirmed moments anybody ever saw her alive. The parking lot behind Marcy sat beside Route 16, a narrow highway cutting through miles of dark pine forest. At night, the road became almost invisible beneath heavy fog rolling down from the hills. Drivers described it as a tunnel of blackness where headlights disappeared into endless trees. Emily's apartment sat only 12 minutes away near the edge of town. She knew the road by heart. Everyone assumed she made it home safely. Everyone was wrong. At 7:12 the next morning, Emily's mother, Linda Grayson, called the sheriff's office in panic after discovering Emily never returned home. Her bed untouched, purse missing, car gone, coffee mug still sitting in the kitchen sink from that morning. Linda later told reporters she felt something terrible immediately. "A mother knows," she said. "You feel it in your bones before anyone else does." But Belridge Sheriff Harold Bennett did not share that urgency. He treated the disappearance like another small-town runaway case. Young woman, 22 years old, independent. Maybe she left with a boyfriend. Maybe she needed space. Maybe she wanted attention. Detectives waited nearly 10 hours before launching a proper search. 10 hours while rain pounded the forest. 10 hours while mud swallowed tire tracks. 10 hours while whatever evidence existed dissolved into cold black water. By sunset, volunteers spread through Belridge carrying flashlights and radios, shouting Emily's name into the woods surrounding Route 16. Search dogs traced her scent briefly near Old Mill Road before stopping suddenly near a ditch beside the highway. One handler later described the dog's behavior as confused and agitated. They circled repeatedly, barking toward the forest, then refused to continue. That same night, investigators discovered Emily's necklace hanging from a broken tree branch roughly 30 feet from the roadside. The silver chain had snapped violently. One tiny clasp bent inward, like someone had ripped it from her throat. Nearby, deputies uncovered disturbed mud and partial shoe impressions barely visible beneath rainwater. There were signs of a struggle, A deep groove cutting through the mud suggested tires spinning hard before accelerating away from the area. Then another storm swept through Bell Ridge. By morning, the evidence was gone. The disappearance exploded across local television stations within days. Emily's smiling yearbook photo appeared on newspaper front pages, beside headlines screaming missing waitress vanishes in storm, and fears grow in Bell Ridge abduction case. Reporters crowded outside the sheriff's office demanding updates. Helicopters circled the forests. Psychics called in claiming visions of water, chains, and darkness. Hundreds of tips flooded police lines, most useless, some deeply disturbing. One witness claimed he heard a woman screaming near the highway shortly after midnight. Another reported seeing a dark pickup truck parked outside the diner with its headlights off before Emily left work. Then came the statement that changed everything. For days after the disappearance, long-haul truck driver Leonard Pike contacted investigators from a rest stop nearly 200 miles away. Pike appeared shaken during questioning. According to a statement, he was driving through Bell Ridge shortly after midnight the night Emily vanished when he noticed a young woman standing barefoot beside Route 16 in heavy rain. She looked terrified. Mud covered her legs. One sleeve appeared torn. Pike slowed his truck, preparing to stop and help, but before he reached her, another vehicle emerged from the darkness behind her. A dark pickup truck, older model, rust along the side panels. No visible license plate. Pike said the woman suddenly turned and ran toward the trees as the truck accelerated after her. Seconds later, both disappeared into the forest beside the highway. Pike searched briefly with a flashlight, but heard nothing except rain and distant thunder. He assumed the woman knew the driver and eventually continued north. Police organized a massive search of the woods surrounding Route 16. They found nothing. No body, no blood, no car, no clothing, nothing except endless wet trees and thick mud swallowing every possible clue. As days turned into weeks, fear spread through Bell Ridge like poison. Parents stopped letting teenagers drive alone after dark. Women carried knives and purses. Businesses closed earlier. Rumors multiplied faster than detectives could investigate them. Every resident seemed to have a theory. Some believed Emily had been abducted by a drifter passing through town. Others whispered about a local mechanic with violent history involving women. But one name surfaced repeatedly in conversations nobody wanted repeated publicly. Victor Hale, 41 years old, divorced, former dock worker living alone near Blackwater Lake in a decaying trailer surrounded by junk vehicles and fishing equipment. Locals describe him as unpredictable, angry, quiet in public, but explosive after drinking. Several women privately admitted Hale made them uncomfortable for years. One waitress from Marcy's claimed he stared at female employees without speaking for hours at a time. Another said he once followed her home after closing shift before disappearing, when she threatened to call police. Then detectives discovered Victor Hale visited Marcy's diner nearly every night Emily worked, always sitting in the same booth, always watching her. When questioned by investigators, Hale denied knowing Emily beyond serving him coffee occasionally. He claimed he spent the night of her disappearance repairing fishing nets alone beside Blackwater Lake. No witnesses confirmed the alibi. Detectives searched his truck and property but found no direct evidence connecting him to the crime. Muddy tire tracks near his trailer resembled thousands of other rural trucks in the county. Forensic technology in 1989 offered little help. DNA testing remained limited. Surveillance cameras barely existed in Bell Ridge. Without a body or physical evidence, investigators had almost nothing. Still, people in town remained terrified of Victor Hale. Children rode bicycles around his property as dares. Teenagers spread stories about screams echoing from Blackwater Lake late at night. Some claimed Victor burned strange objects behind his trailer after midnight. Others swore they saw women entering his truck who were never seen again. Police could prove none of it. Months passed. Then winter arrived. Snow buried the forest surrounding Route 16 beneath silence. Search operations slowed. News crews disappeared. National media lost interest. Emily's face vanished from television screens. replaced by newer tragedies, newer headlines, newer missing women from other towns people would soon forget too. But Linda Grayson refused to stop searching. Every weekend she drove the highways surrounding Belridge, pinning flyers onto gas stations and telephone poles while begging strangers for information. She slept with her phone beside her pillow every night for years, hoping Emily might somehow call home. The call never came. In 1990, investigators revisited the possibility Emily knew her attacker personally. Friends described strange incidents occurring weeks before the disappearance. Emily reportedly complained about someone calling her apartment late at night and remaining silent on the line. One co-worker remembered Emily appearing frightened after discovering fresh cigarette butts outside her apartment window, despite nobody in the building smoking. Another witness claimed Emily believed she was being followed after work by a dark truck matching the description Leonard Pike provided. Then detectives uncovered something chilling. 3 weeks before Emily disappeared, another young woman reported being forced off Route 16 by an older dark pickup truck during heavy rain. The driver attempted to block her car near Old Mill Road before she escaped by speeding back toward town. She described the driver as a large man with heavy facial stubble and deep-set eyes. The description resembled Victor Hale. But prosecutors argued the connection remained circumstantial. No arrest followed. Belridge descended into frustration and paranoia. Residents accused law enforcement of incompetence. Anonymous letters flooded the sheriff's office, accusing different men throughout town. Some citizens formed volunteer night patrols, armed with hunting rifles. Others believed Emily's killer had already left Belridge forever. Sheriff Bennett publicly insisted investigators were close to solving the case, but privately the department was collapsing beneath pressure. By 1992, the official investigation had nearly stopped completely. Emily Grayson became another cold case file, gathering dust inside a metal cabinet. But the nightmare was not over, because somewhere beyond the forest surrounding Belridge, somebody still knew exactly what happened that night beneath the storm. Somebody knew where Emily's body had gone. Somebody had lived with that secret every single day for 27 years, while the town slowly drowned beneath fear, rumors, and silence. And beneath the black water of an isolated lake hidden behind miles of pine trees, something waited in darkness, sealed inside rusted steel, untouched by time, waiting for the drought that would finally expose the horror buried beneath Belridge all along. Winter tightened its grip around Belridge, like a fist slowly crushing the town from the outside in. Snow buried the roads. Ice swallowed the edges of Blackwater Lake. The forest surrounding Route 16 stood silent beneath gray skies, while Emily Grayson's disappearance transformed from breaking news into something colder, heavier, harder to escape. The fear did not disappear with time. It deepened. It settled into kitchens, school hallways, gas stations, and grocery stores where conversations stopped the moment strangers walked too close. Every woman in Belridge changed her routine after Emily vanished. Nobody admitted it openly, but everybody knew the same thought kept crawling through their minds after dark. If someone could take Emily Grayson without leaving behind a body, a witness, or a single answer, then nobody in Belridge was truly safe. Linda Grayson refused to accept the silence. Every morning before sunrise, she sat at the kitchen table surrounded by missing person flyers, newspaper clippings, handwritten notes, and maps covered in circles and arrows. She became obsessed with tiny details investigators dismissed months earlier. A waitress mentioning a strange customer. A truck seen parked beside Route 16. Anonymous late-night phone calls nobody traced. Linda called detectives, so often they stopped answering directly and routed her through receptionists. Friends said grief changed her physically. She lost weight, stopped sleeping, dyed streaks of gray appearing in her hair before Emily had even been gone a year. But Linda kept searching because somewhere deep inside, she believed Emily was still alive. She had to believe it. The alternative was unbearable. In January of 1990, nearly 3 months after the disappearance, investigators received a letter postmarked from a neighboring county. No return address. No fingerprints. Inside was a single newspaper clipping about Emily's case with 4 words written across it in black ink. She still screams at night. The sheriff's department initially believed it was a cruel prank. Belridge had become flooded with false confessions and anonymous tips from unstable people seeking attention. But something about the letter disturbed detectives immediately. The handwriting appeared careful, controlled, deliberate. No smudges, no emotion, almost clinical. More unsettling was the fact that the envelope carried traces of industrial oil commonly used in mechanical repair shops and boat maintenance facilities. Detectives quietly revisited Victor Hale. When officers arrived at Hale's trailer near Blackwater Lake, they discovered him standing outside splitting firewood in freezing rain, as if he'd been expecting them. Witnesses later recalled the image vividly. Hale wore a thick flannel jacket stained with grease and mud. His beard had grown heavier since Emily disappeared. He looked exhausted but strangely calm. Too calm, according to one deputy. Hale smiled when investigators mentioned the anonymous letter. "You wasting your time again?" he asked. Detectives questioned him for nearly 4 hours. They searched the property again, this time more aggressively. Beneath piles of scrap metal behind the trailer, officers discovered dozens of women's items partially buried in mud and snow. Necklaces, shoes, hair clips, purse straps. Most appeared old and damaged by weather. Hale claimed he collected junk from roadsides and abandoned areas near the lake. Investigators could not directly link any of the items to Emily or other missing women. Still, the discovery horrified Belridge residents once details leaked to local newspapers. Headlines exploded across the county. Police find women's items at property of person of interest. Is Belridge harboring a serial predator? Pressure mounted against Sheriff Bennett. Citizens demanded Hale's arrest. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse, carrying signs with Emily's face. But prosecutors faced the same problem again and again. Suspicion was not evidence. They had no body, no DNA, no murder weapon, nothing placing Emily inside Hale's truck or trailer. The investigation stalled once more beneath legal limitations and public frustration. Then another woman came forward. Her name was Rachel Mercer, 29 years old, divorced mother of one. Rachel told detectives she encountered Victor Hale 6 months before Emily vanished while driving home late at night during heavy rain. According to Rachel, Hale followed her truck for nearly 10 miles along Route 16, flashing his headlights repeatedly. When she finally pulled over believing something might be wrong with her vehicle, Hale stopped behind her and approached carrying a flashlight. Rachel said his behavior changed instantly when he realized she had a child asleep in the back seat. He looked disappointed, she later testified, like he was expecting me to be alone. She drove away before anything happened. At the time, she dismissed the encounter as bizarre but harmless. After Emily disappeared, she became convinced Hale intended to attack her that night. Detectives added the statement to the growing file against him, but again there was not enough evidence for criminal charges. Months became years. Belridge slowly transformed into a town haunted by unfinished terror. The diner where Emily worked remained open, but employees refused to leave alone after closing. Truckers passing through still asked questions about the missing waitress. Tourists occasionally drove near Route 16 hoping to glimpse the vanishing road, described in tabloids and television specials. Psychics held candlelight gatherings near Old Mill Road, claiming Emily's spirit remained trapped in the forest. One self-proclaimed medium collapsed screaming beside Blackwater Lake after insisting she heard a woman crying beneath the water. Even seasoned investigators began admitting privately that the case felt wrong. Too clean, too controlled. Detective Arthur Mullen, one of the few officers who never stopped working the case, became increasingly convinced Emily's disappearance had been carefully planned long before that stormy night. Mullen believed the killer knew Belridge intimately, knew the roads, knew police procedures, knew how weather could erase evidence within hours. He also believed Emily had likely been watched for weeks or months beforehand. Then Mullen discovered something deeply unsettling buried inside old diner receipts and witness statements. Victor Hale always appeared at Marcy's Diner on the exact nights Emily worked closing shifts. Not occasionally, not randomly, every single time. Mullen mapped Hale's visits across nearly 8 months and uncovered an almost perfect pattern. Witnesses remembered Hale sitting silently for hours drinking coffee while watching Emily move between tables. Sometimes he never spoke a word, Sometimes he left immediately after Emily finished work. Other waitresses noticed it too, but initially dismissed him as lonely or socially awkward. One former employee later admitted Emily had become frightened enough to ask co-workers to walk her outside during late shifts. She never filed a police report because Hale never directly threatened her. He simply watched, always watching. In 1993, investigators received another break that briefly reignited hope. Construction workers repairing drainage pipes near Old Mill Road uncovered a torn section of blue fabric tangled beneath collapsed debris. Linda Grayson identified it immediately as matching the denim jacket Emily wore the night she vanished. Forensic analysis confirmed the fibers were consistent with the jacket, though degradation prevented absolute certainty. More disturbing was the discovery of tiny blood traces soaked into the material. The blood type matched Emily's. For the first time, detectives publicly admitted they believed Emily Grayson was dead. The announcement devastated Belridge. Residents who spent years convincing themselves she might still be alive suddenly faced a darker reality. Somebody had likely murdered Emily within miles of town and escaped justice completely. Linda Grayson stopped giving interviews after that. Friends said she spent entire days sitting beside her living room window staring toward the highway as if expecting Emily to appear walking through the snow. But Detective Mullen refused to quit. He became consumed by the case. His marriage collapsed. He developed insomnia. Co-workers described him pinning photographs across office walls, drawing connections nobody else could see. He revisited every witness repeatedly, searching for contradictions. He studied maps of Blackwater Lake for hours. Something about the lake bothered him deeply. Too isolated, too quiet. Hale's trailer sat less than half a mile from the shoreline. Dense forests surrounded the area. During storms, the roads became almost impassable. Perfect terrain for disappearing someone forever. In the summer of 1994, Mullen convinced the department to organize a limited dive search near Blackwater Lake. Divers combed portions of the shoreline using sonar equipment and metal detectors, while news crews filmed from a distance. Residents gathered silently beneath umbrellas, hoping for answers at last. The search lasted 3 days. Nothing. No vehicle. No remains. No evidence. Victor Hale watched portions of the search from outside his trailer, smoking cigarettes beside his truck. Witnesses later recalled how relaxed he appeared while divers searched the lake less than a mile away, almost amused. Then, without warning, Detective Arthur Mullen suffered a massive heart attack inside his office late one evening while reviewing Emily's case files. He died before paramedics arrived. He was 46 years old. His death shattered the investigation. Mullen had become the driving force, keeping Emily's case alive inside the department. Without him, momentum disappeared almost overnight. Sheriff Bennett retired the following year, amid growing criticism over multiple unsolved investigations, including Emily's disappearance. New leadership inherited boxes of incomplete reports, damaged evidence, contradictory witness statements, and decades of fear embedded inside the town itself. The case officially turned cold, but Belridge never escaped it. Every anniversary of Emily's disappearance brought fresh newspaper articles and renewed speculation. Reporters returned repeatedly asking the same questions nobody could answer. What happened on Route 16 that night? Why was Emily targeted? Was Victor Hale truly responsible? And if he was, how had he hidden every trace for so long? Then, nearly 18 years after Emily vanished, another woman disappeared from Belridge during a violent storm. And suddenly the nightmare began all over again. The storm returned to Belridge on September 3rd, 2007. Almost exactly the way older residents remembered the night Emily Grayson vanished. Thick black clouds rolled over the forest before sunset. Rain hammered rooftops hard enough to shake windows. Route 16 disappeared beneath fog and water, while emergency scanners crackled nonstop with reports of fallen branches, flooded roads, and disabled vehicles stranded along the highway. By midnight, the town looked submerged in darkness. And somewhere inside that darkness, another woman vanished. Her name was Carla Mendez, 26 years old, dark hair, sharp sense of humor, bartender at Riley's Tavern on the south edge of Belridge. Unlike Emily, Carla wasn't planning to leave town. She had grown up in Belridge and stayed despite years of hearing stories about disappearances, rumors, and the monster people whispered about after midnight. Friends describe her as fearless, stubborn, the kind of woman who laughed directly in the face of danger. But even Carla reportedly became uneasy during the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Co-workers later told investigators she complained about seeing the same truck parked outside the tavern multiple nights in a row. Dark pickup, older model, rust along the side, one broken taillight. The description hit detectives like a gunshot. By then, many younger officers barely remembered the Emily Grayson case beyond faded newspaper clippings stored in evidence archives. But older investigators immediately understood what it meant. After nearly 2 decades, Belridge was staring directly at the same nightmare again. Carla finished work shortly after 12:30 a.m. Security cameras inside Riley's tavern captured her putting on a black leather jacket while joking with co-workers near the front entrance. She looked tired but relaxed. Nothing unusual. Nothing suggesting she was moments away from disappearing forever. Outside, heavy rain blurred the parking lot beneath orange streetlights. Witnesses recalled seeing Carla glance toward the road before leaving as if she noticed something unsettling in the darkness. At 1:07 a.m., a gas station camera roughly 3 miles away captured Carla's red Honda Civic driving east along Route 16. She never reached home. At 8:20 the following morning, a fisherman discovered Carla's abandoned vehicle near the northern edge of Blackwater Lake. Driver's side door hanging open, keys missing, purse still inside, rainwater pooled across the seats. There were no signs of collision or mechanical failure. More disturbing was what investigators noticed immediately after arriving at the scene. Fresh tire impressions, large truck tires, deeply embedded in the mud directly behind Carla's car. The pattern resembled the same style of heavy-duty tires commonly used on older pickup trucks. Belridge erupted into panic. News crews flooded the town within hours after local reporters connected Carla's disappearance to Emily Grayson's unsolved case from 1989. Television stations replayed old footage of Emily's grieving mother beside new images of Carla's abandoned car near Blackwater Lake. Residents who spent years convincing themselves the nightmare belonged to the past suddenly realized the predator might still be alive, still watching, still hunting. And once again, every road led investigators back to Victor Hale. By 2007, Hale was 59 years old and living alone in the same deteriorating trailer beside Blackwater Lake. Time had transformed him into something even more unsettling. He rarely appeared in public anymore. Neighbors described him as paranoid and aggressive. Security cameras now covered sections of his property facing the road. Floodlights surrounded the trailer. Some residents claimed Hale walked the shoreline, carrying a flashlight late at night, muttering to himself. Others reported hearing engines running behind his property during storms when nobody should have been outside. Detectives obtained a warrant within 48 hours. This time the search became massive. State police joined local investigators. Crime scene units swarmed Hale's property while helicopters circled overhead broadcasting live footage to regional news stations. Officers searched the trailer room by room, while divers entered sections of Blackwater Lake nearby. Residents gathered behind police tape in near silence, watching investigators disappear into the woods surrounding Hale's land. Then detectives opened a locked metal cabinet inside Hale's garage. What they found chilled the entire investigation. Photographs, hundreds of them. Women photographed secretly from a distance over nearly 20 years. Some pictures showed grocery store parking lots. Others captured women pumping gas alone late at night. Several appeared taken through restaurant windows. One blurry photograph unmistakably showed Emily Grayson leaving Marcy's diner shortly before her disappearance in 1989. Another showed Carla Mendez standing outside Riley's tavern only days before she vanished. Investigators also discovered maps marked with handwritten notes beside locations throughout Belridge. Several notes referenced weather conditions, traffic patterns, and closing hours for local businesses. One line written beside Route 16 simply read, "Storms keep people blind." The discovery horrified even veteran detectives. But once again, the evidence stopped just short of proving murder. No blood, No remains. No direct forensic connection placing Carla or Emily inside Hale's truck or trailer. Victor Hale denied everything. He claimed he enjoyed photography, claimed he liked tracking routines, claimed he had no idea what happened to either woman. The district attorney faced enormous public pressure to file charges anyway, but prosecutors feared losing the case without stronger physical evidence. Belridge exploded in outrage when Hale walked free after 48 hours of questioning. People screamed outside the courthouse as he exited surrounded by deputies. Someone threw a bottle at his truck. Another person shouted, "You buried them." Victor Hale never responded. He simply drove away through the rain toward Blackwater Lake, while reporters chased behind him. Then the anonymous letters started again. 3 weeks after Carla vanished, Belridge police received another envelope with no return address. Inside said a newspaper clipping about Carla's disappearance, and 6 words typed across white paper using an old typewriter. "You already searched the wrong lake." Detectives immediately reopened old maps from the Emily Grayson investigation. Belridge sat surrounded by multiple isolated bodies of water hidden deep within logging territory beyond Route 16. Search teams expanded outward using cadaver dogs, helicopters, sonar equipment, and volunteer groups combing forests mile by mile. The operations lasted nearly 2 months. Nothing. No Carla. No Emily. No graves. No murder weapon. Only endless woods stretching beneath cold skies, while fear consumed the town all over again. But investigators discovered something else during the renewed search. Something nobody expected. A former Belridge resident named Owen Mercer contacted detectives after recognizing Victor Hale's face on television coverage. Mercer had lived near Blackwater Lake during the late 1980s before moving away. According to his statement, he once witnessed Hale dragging a large blue barrel from the back of his truck during a thunderstorm roughly 1 week after Emily disappeared. Mercer claimed the barrel looked extremely heavy. Hale allegedly rolled it toward an old fishing boat near the shoreline before noticing Mercer, watching from a distance. The next morning, the barrel was gone. Mercer admitted he never reported the incident because he feared Hale. Detectives immediately organized another dive operation across Blackwater Lake, focused specifically on locating barrels, metal containers, or submerged debris. Sonar scans revealed dozens of anomalies beneath thick mud and dark water accumulated over decades. Divers recovered engine blocks, rusted appliances, shopping carts, and scrap metal dumped illegally for years. Every discovery reignited public frenzy. Every recovered object triggered headlines. Still no bodies. Meanwhile, Victor Hale's behavior became increasingly erratic. Neighbors reported hearing him screaming inside his trailer late at night. One witness claimed Hale burned stacks of papers behind his property after midnight shortly following the police search. Another reported seeing him drive repeatedly around Blackwater Lake during severe storms. Detectives placed intermittent surveillance on Hale, but struggled to maintain consistent coverage due to budget limitations and legal restrictions. Then something happened that changed the investigation forever. On November 14th, 2007, Victor Hale disappeared. Police arrived at his trailer to execute another search warrant after obtaining new evidence related to Carla's vehicle. Instead, they found a property abandoned. Hale's truck missing, cabinets emptied, surveillance cameras smashed, half-burned documents scattered beside a fire pit behind the trailer. Detectives launched a regional manhunt believing Hale might attempt suicide or flee across state lines. 3 days later, a hunter discovered Hale's truck abandoned deep inside logging territory, nearly 80 miles north of Belridge. No sign of Hale. Search teams combed the forest for nearly a week. Nothing. Then, just as suddenly as he vanished, Victor Hale returned on his own. At 2:13 a.m. on November 22nd, Hale walked into a rural sheriff's station 2 counties away soaked by rain and mud. He appeared exhausted and disoriented. According to deputies present that night, Hale repeatedly muttered the same sentence under his breath while staring at the floor. They keep floating back up. Detectives interrogated him for nearly 12 hours. Hale refused to explain where he had been, refused to discuss Emily or Carla, refused to elaborate on the statement. By the time questioning ended, Investigators believed Hale was psychologically unstable, but still lacked enough evidence for murder charges. Once again, he walked free. But Bell Ridge changed after that. People stopped viewing Victor Hale as merely suspicious. They became convinced he was a killer hiding in plain sight. Children crossed streets to avoid his truck. Businesses refused service when he entered. Someone spray-painted Monster across the side of his trailer one night. Another resident fired a shotgun through his mailbox. Yet despite the hatred surrounding him, Hale remained untouchable. Years passed again. Carla Mendez remained missing. Emily Grayson remained missing. Blackwater Lake remained silent. Then, during the brutal summer drought of 2016, the water level around the lake dropped lower than anyone had seen in nearly half a century. Muddy shorelines stretched outward beneath dead trees and exposed debris long hidden beneath dark water. Residents wandered across newly revealed sections of lake bed collecting old bottles, rusted tools, and fishing equipment buried decades earlier. And on August 11th, two teenage boys exploring near the northern shoreline stumbled across something protruding from thick mud roughly 40 yards from the water's edge. A steel barrel. Old, corroded, half buried beneath black sludge. One of the boys later told investigators he initially thought it was trash until he noticed something wrapped tightly around the rusted metal clamps, sealing the lid shut. Chains. The smell reached them before the barrel was fully uncovered. Rot. Chemical sludge. Something ancient trapped beneath mud and stagnant water for decades, suddenly exposed to open air again. The two boys who found it stumbled backward immediately, covering their mouths as flies swarmed around the rusted metal surface. One later told investigators the barrel looked like it was breathing beneath the heat, tiny bubbles rising through black mud around its base as if the lake itself were trying to force it back underground. The chains wrapped around the lid had fused together with corrosion. Thick rust coated every inch of steel. Whatever had been hidden inside that barrel had remained untouched beneath Blackwater Lake for years. At 4:47 p.m., Bell Ridge police sealed off the northern shoreline. Within an hour, the scene exploded into chaos. State investigators arrived alongside forensic teams, divers, crime scene photographers, reporters, and emergency personnel, while helicopters circled overhead broadcasting live images across regional television. Residents gathered behind yellow tape in stunned silence as officers carefully dug the barrel free from hardened mud. Some people already knew before the lid opened. They could feel it. Bell Ridge had carried this nightmare too long. Everyone understood the lake was finally giving something back. And everybody was thinking the same name, Emily Grayson. Detectives transported the barrel beneath floodlights to a temporary forensic tent erected near the shoreline. Cameras flashed nonstop through the evening rain, while investigators worked in protective suits around the heavily corroded container. News reporters spoke in hushed voices into microphones, describing the moment like the discovery of a buried war grave. Nobody in Bell Ridge slept that night. At 8:12 p.m., forensic technicians finally cut through the rusted clamps, sealing the lid shut. Several investigators immediately turned away. One vomited behind the tent. Inside the barrel were human skeletal remains wrapped in decayed plastic sheeting bound tightly with heavy industrial chain. Layers of concrete surrounded portions of the remains, apparently poured into the container to weigh it down before disposal. But what froze the entire scene into silence was the object attached to one skeletal wrist, a silver bracelet. Tiny engraved letters barely visible beneath years of corrosion. Emily. Word spread through Bell Ridge within minutes. Residents flooded social media pages and emergency scanner forums, while television stations interrupted programming with breaking news alerts. Emily Grayson's mother received a phone call shortly after 9 p.m. Neighbors later described hearing Linda screaming from inside her home before collapsing onto the kitchen floor. 27 years of uncertainty ended in a single moment beside Blackwater Lake. Emily was never coming home. The following morning, forensic experts confirmed the remains belonged to a female approximately matching Emily's age and physical profile. Dental comparisons would later establish official identification beyond doubt. But investigators already understood something even more horrifying. The barrel had not drifted randomly into the lake. Someone deliberately placed it there. Someone chained it, weighted it with concrete, and hid it beneath water only half a mile from Victor Hale's trailer. Bell Ridge erupted. Crowds gathered outside the sheriff's department demanding Hale's immediate arrest. News vans lined every major road entering town. Former investigators returned for interviews describing decades of mistakes and missed opportunities. National crime shows began airing special reports within days. Suddenly, Bell Ridge became infamous across the country. The town where a missing woman spent 27 years hidden beneath a lake, while her suspected killer lived nearby in plain sight. Detectives launched the largest investigation in county history. Every inch of Blackwater Lake became an active crime scene. Divers returned to the water searching for additional barrels or evidence hidden beneath the mud. Cadaver dogs swept surrounding forests. Ground-penetrating radar scanned land surrounding Victor Hale's abandoned property. Forensic accountants reopened financial records stretching back decades. Detectives re-interviewed nearly every surviving witness connected to Emily's disappearance. And almost immediately, disturbing new details began emerging. The barrel itself originated from a manufacturing company located less than 15 miles from Bell Ridge. Employment records revealed Victor Hale worked temporary dock contracts for the company during the late 1980s. The industrial chain wrapped around the remains matched equipment frequently used at the shipping yard where Hale once worked. Even more alarming, forensic examination identified traces of marine adhesive inside the barrel identical to materials recovered years earlier from Hale's garage during the Carla Mendez investigation. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, investigators believed they finally had enough evidence to charge Victor Hale with murder. There was only one problem. Nobody could find him. When detectives arrived at Hale's trailer less than 12 hours after the barrel discovery, the property sat empty, windows broken, doors hanging open, dust-coating furniture inside. It looked abandoned for years despite witnesses claiming Hale still lived there recently. The trailer smelled of mildew, oil, and stagnant water. Officers discovered stacks of old newspapers covering the walls from floor to ceiling. Nearly every article involved missing women, unsolved murders, or cold cases from surrounding counties. Some articles contained handwritten notes in the margins. Too careless. She trusted him. Storm covered everything. Then investigators entered the back bedroom. The room stopped veteran detectives cold. Photographs covered every wall. Hundreds of women, some smiling, some unaware they were being watched. Many appeared frightened after noticing the camera. Several images showed women entering vehicles alone at night. Others depicted women through apartment windows or walking near isolated roads. At the center of the room hung the largest photograph of all, Emily Grayson leaving Marcy's diner, time-stamped just 22 minutes before she disappeared. Below the image, someone had written a single sentence directly onto the wall. She was supposed to stay quiet. Detectives also uncovered dozens of cassette tapes hidden beneath floorboards inside the trailer. Most contained distorted recordings of police scanners, weather reports, or long periods of silence interrupted by static. But several tapes included something else. Women's voices, crying, begging, screaming. The recording sent shockwaves through the investigation. Audio experts struggled to determine dates due to severe degradation, but one voice sounded chillingly similar to Emily Grayson, according to surviving family members. Another possibly matched Carla Mendez. Investigators refused to release full details publicly, fueling even more fear and speculation across Bell Ridge. Then came another horrifying discovery. During a secondary dive operation near the northern edge of Blackwater Lake, divers located a second submerged barrel buried beneath heavy sediment less than 60 feet from where Emily's remains were found. This one remained sealed shut. News helicopters captured recovery live. Bell Ridge watched in collective horror as cranes lifted the corroded container from dark water, dripping black sludge back into the lake. Investigators transported it beneath armed escort to a secure forensic facility, while reporters speculated nonstop about what waited inside. At 2:16 a.m. the following morning, forensic technicians opened the second barrel. Inside were the skeletal remains of another woman. Dental records confirmed the identity 48 hours later. Carla Mendez. Bell Ridge descended into outrage unlike anything the town had ever experienced. 2 women, 2 barrels, hidden beneath the same lake near the same suspect's property. Suddenly, decades of rumors no longer sounded paranoid. Residents began wondering how many other victims remained undiscovered beyond the forest surrounding Route 16. State investigators formed a multi-agency cold case task force within days. Detectives reopened disappearances stretching back nearly 40 years across neighboring counties. Missing hitchhikers, runaways, unidentified remains discovered near highways, women last seen during storms. Every unsolved case now carried one terrifying question attached to it. Was Victor Hale responsible? But as investigators expanded the search, Victor himself remained missing. Authorities issued a nationwide warrant charging Hale with multiple counts of murder, unlawful disposal of human remains, kidnapping, and obstruction of justice. His face appeared across television screens nationwide, beside headlines calling him the Blackwater Killer. Tips flooded in from multiple states claiming sightings of Hale at truck stops, motels, campgrounds, and rural highways. Most proved false. Then detectives received a call from an elderly woman living near the outskirts of Belridge. Her statement changed the entire timeline of the investigation. The woman, Margaret Holloway, claimed she saw Victor Hale driving toward Blackwater Lake during the early morning hours after Emily disappeared in 1989. According to Holloway, Hale's truck appeared heavily weighted in the back, riding unusually low near the rear axle. She specifically remembered seeing what looked like a large blue barrel partially covered by a tarp inside the truck bed. At the time, she thought nothing of it. Now she realized exactly what she had witnessed. Investigators also uncovered old marina receipts proving Hale rented a small fishing boat the week Emily vanished. The same type of marine adhesive discovered inside the barrel had been purchased by Hale only days earlier, according to surviving hardware store records. Piece by piece, the monster Belridge feared for decades finally emerged into full view. But even then, there remained something deeply unsettling about the evidence. Emily and Carla had both vanished during violent storms, both abducted late at night, both hidden inside weighted barrels, both dumped in the same lake. The precision suggested planning, control, experience, and investigators could not shake one impossible thought. If Victor Hale committed these murders successfully for decades, how many times had he done it before? Search teams intensified operations around Blackwater Lake throughout the autumn of 2016. Divers recovered additional chains, sections of torn plastic sheeting, women's jewelry, and degraded clothing fragments from beneath layers of sediment. Cadaver dogs repeatedly alerted near isolated portions of shoreline beyond Hale's former property. Excavation crews uncovered burned pits containing damaged bone fragments too degraded for immediate identification. The deeper investigators searched, the darker the case became. Then, on October 3rd, nearly 2 months after the first barrel surfaced, authorities received a call from a hunter deep within the forest north of Belridge. He claimed he discovered an abandoned hunting cabin hidden miles from the nearest road. Inside, someone had covered the walls with newspaper clippings about Emily Grayson. And beneath the cabin floorboards, investigators found something wrapped carefully inside oil-stained canvas. A driver's license, issued to Victor Hale, alongside a loaded revolver, and a handwritten note containing only 6 chilling words. They should have left the lake alone. The cabin sat hidden beneath dense pine trees nearly 30 miles north of Belridge, invisible from the nearest road unless someone knew exactly where to look. Moss covered the roof. Broken branches blocked the narrow trail, leading toward it. Rainwater leaked through warped wooden boards, while dead leaves collected against the doorway, like the forest itself had been trying to bury the structure for years. Hunters occasionally passed through the region during deer season, but almost nobody ventured deep enough into the woods to find it. That isolation made the discovery even more terrifying. Someone had been living there recently. Investigators entered cautiously at dawn. The inside looked frozen in time. Dust-coated empty cans, stained blankets, rusted lanterns, and stacks of newspapers scattered across the floor. Most headlines focus on Emily Grayson and Carla Mendez. Others involved missing women from surrounding counties dating back decades. Some articles were circled repeatedly in black marker. Certain victims shared striking similarities. Young women, late-night disappearances, stormy weather, rural highways, Several cases had never been publicly connected before. Then detectives noticed the walls. Photographs covered nearly every surface. Hundreds of them. Women walking alone. Women pumping gas. Women exiting bars, grocery stores, diners, laundromats. Some appeared terrified after realizing they were being watched. Others never noticed the camera at all. The images stretched across years, maybe decades. Investigators estimated some photographs dated back to the late 1970s based on clothing and film degradation. At the center of the cabin, pinned directly above a small wooden table, hung a large map covered in colored pins connected by red thread. Missing persons locations, discovery sites, lakes, forest roads, abandoned service stations. The entire region surrounding Bell Ridge looked infected by a web of disappearances. Detective Laura Vance stared at the map for nearly 10 minutes before speaking. "This wasn't random," she whispered. The realization spread quickly through the task force. Victor Hale may not have been a solitary killer acting impulsively during storms. Evidence suggested obsession. Ritual, planning refined over decades. And if investigators were correct, Emily and Carla might represent only a fraction of his victims. Forensic teams dismantled the cabin inch by inch. Beneath loose floorboards, they recovered ammunition, handwritten journals, women's jewelry, and old cassette tapes wrapped carefully in plastic. Some tapes contained weather broadcasts and police scanner recordings identical to those found in Hale's trailer. Others captured disturbing fragments of conversation between Hale and unidentified women. One tape included heavy rain striking metal, while a terrified female voice repeatedly begged someone to please let me out. Investigators could not identify the speaker immediately. Then came the worst discovery. Hidden beneath the cabin cellar, investigators uncovered a shallow, concealed compartment lined with black plastic sheeting. Inside were several women's personal belongings preserved in sealed containers. Driver's licenses, earrings, watches, photographs. Most belonged to women reported missing across multiple states between 1978 and 2003. The task force suddenly realized they were no longer investigating two murders. They were hunting a potential serial killer operating for nearly 40 years. National media exploded. Bell Ridge transformed overnight into the center of one of the largest criminal investigations in modern state history. Satellite trucks lined every road entering town. Crime reporters described Blackwater Lake as America's buried graveyard. Former FBI profilers appeared on television theorizing Hale selected victims based on routine, isolation, and weather conditions. Some believed storms formed part of his psychological ritual. Others argued he used severe weather strategically because rain destroyed evidence and kept witnesses indoors. Meanwhile, search teams continued sweeping forests surrounding the cabin and Blackwater Lake. And they kept finding things. A necklace buried near an old fire pit matched photographs from an unsolved 1984 disappearance in Oregon. Fragments of clothing discovered beside a creek resembled garments worn by a missing hitchhiker from Nevada. Bone fragments recovered from burn sites near the cabin belonged to multiple unidentified individuals, according to preliminary forensic analysis. The deeper investigators dug, the larger the nightmare became. Then on October 11, 2016, the task force received a shocking lead from nearly 300 miles away. A retired truck mechanic named Raymond Fisk contacted authorities after recognizing Victor Hale's face during a televised interview. Fisk claimed he worked alongside Hale briefly during the late 1970s as shipping dock near Tacoma. According to Fisk, Hale once confessed something deeply disturbing during a night of heavy drinking. He said lakes were perfect graves, Fisk told investigators. Said water eats everything eventually. Fisk also remembered Hale discussing barrels specifically, large industrial drums used for shipping chemicals and engine oil. Hale allegedly joked that concrete inside the barrels made bodies sleep forever. Detectives immediately reopened old shipping manifests connected to Hale's former employment. Records revealed dozens of industrial barrels disappeared from storage yards during periods overlapping several unsolved disappearances throughout the 1980s. At the time, nobody noticed because inventory systems were primitive and poorly monitored. Now the pattern looked horrifying. Every new discovery pushed Bell Ridge closer toward panic. Parents refused to let children walk home from school. Gun sales surged across neighboring counties. Residents flooded police lines reporting suspicious memories involving Victor Hale stretching back decades. One woman claimed Hale followed her through a supermarket parking lot in 1991 before abruptly leaving when another customer approached. Another reported waking one night to discover Hale standing outside her apartment building staring upward at her window during a thunderstorm. Then a former Belridge deputy came forward with information investigators had never heard before. His name was Calvin Reese. Reese admitted that shortly after Emily disappeared in 1989, he responded to a late-night disturbance call near Blackwater Lake involving Victor Hale and another unidentified man. According to Reese, the men were unloading something heavy from a truck near the shoreline during severe rain. When confronted, Hale became aggressive and claimed they were disposing of damaged fishing equipment. Reese briefly inspected the truck bed, but heavy tarps concealed most contents. He allowed them to leave after checking identification. The deputy never filed a formal report. Why? Because Sheriff Bennett allegedly ordered officers to stop harassing locals during the chaos surrounding Emily's investigation. The revelation devastated Belridge all over again. Public outrage shifted beyond Hale himself toward decades of investigative failures that may have allowed a killer to continue operating unchecked. Families of missing women demanded answers. Lawsuits threatened former officials. News commentators openly questioned whether Emily Grayson might have survived if early evidence had been handled properly. Linda Grayson watched the media frenzy from inside her quiet home near the edge of town. Friends said she barely spoke anymore. After 27 years of uncertainty, the confirmation of Emily's death left her emotionally hollow. But one thought tormented her constantly. Had Emily suffered before she died? Investigators could not answer that question publicly. Privately, forensic examination of Emily's remains revealed horrifying evidence suggesting prolonged restraint before death. Damage around her wrists matched heavy chains recovered inside the barrel. Certain fractures indicated repeated trauma occurring before decomposition. Though official cause of death remained difficult to determine due to the passage of time, investigators believed Emily likely died violently. And somewhere in the forest surrounding Belridge, Victor Hale was still missing. Massive search operations expanded across neighboring states throughout late autumn. Tracking teams followed possible sightings through truck stops, abandoned campsites, and rural highways. Some witnesses described Hale appearing disoriented and heavily armed. Others believe he planned to commit suicide rather than face capture. Authorities warned residents not to approach him under any circumstances. Then another storm rolled over Belridge. October 19th, exactly 27 years and 2 days after Emily vanished. Heavy rain flooded portions of Route 16, while winds tore branches across roads throughout the county. Emergency dispatchers handled multiple accidents overnight. At 11:42 p.m., nearly the exact time Emily left Marcy's diner decades earlier, Belridge police received a 911 call from a terrified motorist driving near Old Mill Road. The caller claimed a man stepped directly into the highway during the storm, waving a flashlight wildly beside the forest. The description matched Victor Hale. Officers arrived within minutes. No sign of him, but investigators discovered fresh footprints leading into dense woods beside the road. 9 units tracked the scent nearly 2 miles through mud and rain before reaching an abandoned ranger station hidden deep inside the forest. Inside, they found recent evidence of occupation. Food wrappers, blankets, empty medication bottles, and one object placed carefully on the center table beneath a leaking roof, a cassette recorder, still running. Detectives played the tape immediately. At first, only static and heavy rain filled the recording. Then came Victor Hale's voice, calm and strangely exhausted. "You think the lake was the secret," he said softly. The lake was never the secret. Several seconds of silence followed. Then Hale laughed quietly. There are places nobody ever searches. The recording abruptly ended with a loud metallic sound followed by what investigators later described as distant screaming. Search teams flooded the forest surrounding the ranger station through the night. Helicopters scanned logging roads with thermal imaging equipment. Officers combed ravines, caves, abandoned mine shafts, and remote hunting camps. Rain hammered the region nonstop, turning trails into rivers of mud. Just before dawn, one search team discovered fresh tire tracks leading toward an isolated quarry long abandoned outside Belridge. At the bottom of the quarry sat a rusted crane partially submerged in dark water, and hanging from a crane cable, barely visible beneath the storm, investigators saw another steel barrel swaying slowly above the flooded pit. Rain slammed against the quarry hard enough to blur the floodlights into pale white smears across the darkness. Water poured down broken rock walls in violent streams, while thunder rolled above the valley like distant explosions. Officers moved carefully along the muddy ledges surrounding the abandoned pit, weapons drawn, boots sliding dangerously close to the flooded drop below. The old crane groaned in the wind. Rusted cables swayed back and forth over Blackwater 40 feet, beneath the quarry rim, and suspended from one of those cables, turning slowly in the storm like a pendulum, hung another steel barrel. Every detective at the scene understood what they were looking at. Another grave. The barrel appeared newer than the ones recovered from Blackwater Lake, but carried the same horrifying characteristics. Industrial steel, heavy chain wrapped tightly around the center, sections reinforced with poured concrete. Whoever prepared it knew exactly how to make a body disappear permanently beneath water. But this time, the barrel had never been submerged. It had been left hanging, waiting, as if someone wanted investigators to find it. Bomb technicians approached first, fearing the possibility of traps or explosives. The cable supporting the barrel looked unstable after years of corrosion. One wrong movement could send the entire container crashing into a flooded quarry below. Officers secured the crane, while divers prepared in case recovery became necessary from underwater. Then detectives noticed something written across the side of the barrel in faded white paint. Look closer. The word sent a visible chill through the task force. Victor Hale was communicating with them. The realization changed the atmosphere instantly. This was no longer just a fugitive hiding from capture. Hale was orchestrating something, manipulating the investigation, leading police from location to location through storms, forests, and buried evidence like a predator still controlling the narrative even while hunted nationwide. At 6:14 a.m., investigators lowered the barrel carefully onto stable ground beside the quarry. Forensic teams worked in near silence beneath portable floodlights while rain hammered against plastic tarps overhead. News helicopters circled miles away, unable to approach due to weather conditions. But everyone in Belridge already knew something massive was unfolding at the quarry. Emergency scanners leaked information faster than authorities could contain it. Residents gathered inside diners and living rooms watching the storm coverage while waiting for another nightmare to surface from the darkness. When technicians finally forced the lid open, several officers staggered backward immediately. Inside was not a body. It was evidence. Boxes, dozens of sealed containers stacked tightly inside the barrel, each wrapped in plastic against moisture. Investigators carefully removed them one by one, while cameras documented every detail. Inside the boxes, detectives discovered hundreds of photographs, handwritten journals, maps, newspaper clippings, police scanner transcripts, and cassette tapes dating back almost 40 years. Victor Hale had created an archive, a complete record of his crimes. And buried among the materials sat a single VHS tape, labeled in black marker, Emily. The tape was transported immediately under armed escort to a forensic lab in Belridge. Detectives gathered inside a secured viewing room late that afternoon, while rain continued battering the town outside. Nobody spoke much before the tape played. Several investigators later admitted they feared what they were about to see more than anything else discovered so far. Static filled the screen first. Heavy rain echoed somewhere in the background. Then the image stabilized. The footage appeared grainy and distorted, likely recorded using an old handheld camcorder sometime during the late 1980s. A dim light illuminated part of a concrete floor inside an unknown structure. Water dripped steadily nearby. The camera shifted shakily before settling on a young woman sitting against a wall with her hands bound tightly in front of her. Emily Grayson, alive. Gasps filled the room instantly. Detectives stared in stunned silence as Emily looked directly toward the camera, terrified and exhausted. Her face appeared bruised, one sleeve torn. Mud covered portions of her jeans, exactly matching Leonard Pike's description from the night she vanished. The timestamp in the corner read October 18th, 1989, hours after her disappearance. Emily's voice trembled as she spoke. He said if I stayed quiet, he'd let me go. The tape continued for nearly 18 minutes. Investigators watched helplessly as Victor Hale's voice occasionally drifted from behind the camera, asking questions calmly, almost conversationally. He asked Emily whether anyone would come looking for her, asked if she believed people truly knew who she was, asked whether she trusted strangers too easily. The entire interaction felt deeply disturbing because Hale never shouted, never sounded angry. His tone remained controlled and eerily patient throughout the recording. At one point, Emily began crying and begged to contact her mother. "Halle lafet softly. You already disappeared," he whispered. The tape abruptly ended seconds later. No murder captured. No clear location visible. But for the first time in 27 years, investigators possessed undeniable proof that Emily Grayson had been abducted and held captive by Victor Hale. Bell Ridge exploded. National news networks interrupted regular programming to report the existence of the tape. Legal experts debated whether investigators should release portions publicly. Emily's family refused to watch the footage after learning basic details. Linda Grayson reportedly collapsed after detectives informed her the tape confirmed Emily suffered before death, and Victor Hale remained missing. But buried inside the recovered journals from the quarry barrel, investigators uncovered something even more terrifying than the tape itself. Names. Pages and pages of names. Some corresponded to known missing women. Others belonged to individuals never reported missing at all. Next to certain names, Hale included dates, locations, weather conditions, and cryptic comments written in meticulous handwriting. Too much attention. Wrong vehicle. Trusted me quickly. Kept screaming. The journal suggested Hale stalked hundreds of women over decades while selecting only certain victims. Investigators compared the entries against unsolved disappearances nationwide and immediately identified possible matches stretching across 7 states. Then they found the drawings. Detailed sketches of underground structures, drainage tunnels, abandoned buildings, and remote industrial sites throughout the region. Some locations had already been demolished years earlier. Others remained standing but forgotten. One recurring location appeared repeatedly throughout multiple journals. An abandoned water treatment facility outside Bell Ridge. The same facility had once served as Blackwater Lake during the 1970s before shutting down permanently after contamination issues. Dense forest surrounded the area. Most residents barely remembered it existed. Detective Laura Vance became convinced immediately. "That's where he kept them," she said. Search teams mobilized within hours despite worsening weather. Officers surrounded the abandoned facility shortly before midnight, while helicopters scanned surrounding woods using thermal imaging. The structure rose from the forest like a rotting skeleton. Broken concrete towers, rusted pipes, flooded basements disappearing beneath darkness. Wind howled through shattered windows while rainwater poured from collapsed ceilings inside. The place smelled like mold, oil, and stagnant water. Investigators entered slowly. Flashlights swept across peeling walls covering graffiti and decades of decay. Most rooms appeared abandoned long ago until officers reached the lower maintenance tunnels beneath the facility. There, hidden behind welded metal doors, detectives discovered something horrifying. Cells. Small concrete rooms reinforced with chains bolted directly into the walls. Old mattresses. Buckets. Scratches covering the concrete. Several investigators stopped speaking entirely as they moved deeper underground. The tunnel stretched farther than expected beneath the facility, connecting the drainage systems leading toward Blackwater Lake. In one chamber, officers discovered shelves lined with videotapes and photographs preserved carefully inside waterproof containers. Victor Hale had been using the underground tunnel for years. Then they found the clothes. Women's clothing sealed inside industrial bags stacked against one wall. Forensic teams identified garments belonging to multiple missing persons cases within days. One jacket matched a woman who disappeared in Idaho in 1994. Another belonged to a college student missing since 1981. The scale of the horror kept expanding. Then, at 2:33 a.m., one officer discovered fresh footprints in the mud near the deepest section of tunnel. Fresh, not old impressions. Someone had been there recently. Search teams spread through the underground system immediately. Officers shouted warnings while moving through narrow flooded corridors beneath the facility. Water dripped constantly through cracked ceilings. Electrical cables swung overhead. Every shadow looked alive beneath flashlight beams. Then one detective heard coughing somewhere ahead. Faint, human. The task force followed the sound deeper underground until they reached a locked maintenance chamber partially submerged beneath dark water. Officers forced the door open with crowbars and rushed inside. The room was empty. Almost. Against the far wall, investigators discovered a rusted wheelchair beside piles of blankets and empty food cans. Medical supplies littered the floor nearby. Someone had clearly been hiding there recently. Then Detective Vance noticed movement beneath the water. A body, face down, floating slowly beside the wall. Divers entered immediately while officers secured the chamber. Seconds later, they rolled the body over beneath flashlight beams cutting through black water. Victor Hale stared upward with pale frozen eyes. Dead, a gunshot wound directly beneath the chin. And chained tightly around his wrist was a key attached to a faded plastic tag, labeled with 3 handwritten words. The last one. The underground chamber fell completely silent after detectives pulled Victor Hale's body from the water. Rain echoed faintly through distant pipes somewhere above the tunnels, while officers stood frozen beneath flickering flashlight beams staring at the dead man who had haunted Bell Ridge for nearly 3 decades. For years, residents imagined this moment differently. A dramatic arrest, a courtroom confession, families finally hearing the truth directly from the monster responsible. Instead, Hale floated alone in darkness beneath an abandoned water treatment facility, a bullet through his skull and a cryptic key chained to his wrist like one final message. The last one. Nobody understood what the words meant. Not yet. Paramedics confirmed Hale had been dead less than 24 hours. The wound appeared self-inflicted. Powder burns covered portions of his face and right hand, though investigators still processed the scene cautiously, unwilling to rule out other possibilities too early. Beside Hale's body, officers recovered a revolver missing 1 round and a waterproof duffel bag containing canned food, batteries, weather maps, and police scanner equipment. He had clearly been hiding underground for days, maybe weeks, while the investigation closed around him. But something about the chamber disturbed Detective Laura Vance immediately. It looked abandoned too quickly. The blankets remained warm. Coffee inside a thermos still held heat. Water dripped steadily from freshly disturbed footprints leading deeper through a narrow maintenance tunnel beyond the chamber wall. The tunnel disappeared into darkness beneath collapsed piping and old concrete supports. Investigators initially believed Hale had simply used the passage before returning to the chamber and killing himself. Then Vance noticed the handcuffs. One cuff remained bolted to a pipe beside the wall. The other hung open. Fresh scratches covered the metal. Her stomach tightened instantly. "Search the tunnels," she ordered. The task force spread through the underground network beneath the treatment facility, while forensic teams processed Hale's body. The tunnels stretched farther than original blueprints suggested, weaving beneath the forest and connecting to drainage systems surrounding Blackwater Lake. Some passages flooded knee-deep with black water. Others collapsed decades earlier, forcing officers through narrow gaps beneath broken concrete and hanging pipes. The deeper they moved underground, the stronger the smell became. Rot, mildew, human waste. Signs of long-term habitation appeared everywhere. Food wrappers, lanterns, bottled water, medical supplies. And on several tunnel walls, investigators discovered marks scratched repeatedly into the concrete. Vertical lines, grouped in sets of 5. Tally marks. Someone had been counting days. At 4:11 a.m., nearly 2 hours into the tunnel search, Officer Daniel Ruiz heard movement beyond a partially collapsed service corridor near the eastern drainage system. At first, he thought it was an animal. Then came the sound again. Coughing. Weak. Human. Officers forced themselves through debris and entered a small hidden maintenance room barely large enough to stand upright inside. The air smelled suffocating. Rusted pipes dripped constantly overhead. Flashlight beams swept across filthy blankets piled against one wall, and then someone moved beneath them. A woman, alive. She recoiled instantly from the light, shielding her face while gasping in panic. Her hair hung tangled around a gaunt, pale face streaked with dirt and tears. Bruises covered portions of her wrists. One ankle remained shackled to a pipe with a heavy chain. Detectives later described the moment as surreal, almost impossible to process after weeks spent uncovering bodies and graves. The woman looked at the officers in complete terror. "Is he dead?" she whispered. Nobody answered immediately, because nobody could understand how this was possible. Her name was Allison Beck, 34 years old, missing since 2009, 8 years, alive beneath the tunnels. The discovery sent shockwaves through the investigation, unlike anything before it. Paramedics rushed Allison from the underground facility shortly before dawn, wrapped in blankets, while helicopters circled overhead broadcasting live footage nationwide. Belridge residents watched in disbelief as news stations interrupted coverage of Victor Hale's death with another unimaginable revelation. Hale had not only murdered women, he had kept at least one alive. Doctors later confirmed Allison suffered severe malnutrition, dehydration, untreated injuries, and profound psychological trauma. She barely spoke during the first 48 hours after rescue. Investigators feared her mental condition might prevent coherent testimony altogether. But even in fragments, Allison's statements shattered everything detectives believed they understood about Victor Hale. Because according to Allison, Hale was never alone. The first time she spoke the words, detectives assumed confusion caused by trauma. "There was another man," she whispered from her hospital bed. Task force investigators immediately leaned closer. Allison described hearing 2 male voices repeatedly during her captivity. One belonged to Hale. The other sounded older, calmer. She claimed the second man visited the tunnels occasionally during storms, bringing supplies and helping move barrels through underground drainage passages connected to Blackwater Lake. Allison never saw his face clearly because Hale forced her to remain restrained whenever the man arrived. But she remembered one thing vividly: the smell, cigars and engine oil. Detectives froze. Sheriff Harold Bennett, the former Belridge sheriff who mishandled Emily Grayson's original investigation decades earlier, had been famous for smoking cigars constantly, even during crime scenes, even inside patrol vehicles. Former deputies joked they could identify Bennett's arrival before seeing him because the smell lingered everywhere. The implication hit the task force like a bomb. Could Belridge's former sheriff have helped Victor Hale conceal murder for years? Investigators immediately reopened archived evidence surrounding Bennett's career. What they discovered triggered another avalanche of horror. Multiple reports connected to Emily's disappearance had vanished from evidence storage entirely after Bennett retired in 1995. Witness statements mentioning Hale repeatedly disappeared or were altered. Search warrants targeting Hale's property have been delayed, denied, or quietly abandoned under Bennett's authority. Then forensic accountants uncovered suspicious financial records buried inside old county archives. Cash withdrawals, undocumented property payments, large deposits moving through shell accounts connected indirectly to Bennett and businesses associated with Hale. The deeper investigators dug, the darker conspiracy became. Belridge erupted again. Residents who spent decades blaming incompetence suddenly faced the possibility of corruption far worse than negligence. Protesters gathered outside the abandoned sheriff's office, demanding criminal investigations into former deputies and officials. News commentators openly questioned whether Bennett actively protected Hale, while women disappeared across multiple states. But Bennett himself had died in 2003 from liver failure, taking his secrets to the grave. Or so investigators thought. Because buried inside Victor Hale's recovered journals, detectives found repeated references to someone identified only as HB. The entry stretched across nearly 20 years. HB cleaned the reports. HB says storms solve everything. HB wants the barrels deeper. One entry dated October 21st, 1989, 4 days after Emily disappeared, contained a sentence that made detectives physically sick. HB says the mother asks too many questions. Investigators suddenly realized Emily Grayson may never have had a chance at justice from the very beginning. Meanwhile, Allison Beck slowly revealed more details about the underground tunnels during extensive interviews with federal investigators. She described hearing water pumps activate during storms. She remembered Hale transporting heavy containers through hidden drainage corridors at night. Most disturbing of all, she claimed there were additional rooms beneath the facility even Hale seemed afraid of. He called them the deep chambers, Allison whispered. According to her testimony, Hale once told her nobody would ever find what was buried there because the water sealed everything. Search teams returned underground immediately. Engineers reviewed original treatment facility blueprints and discovered several sections missing from county records entirely. Ground-penetrating radar revealed large hidden cavities beneath collapsed portions of the tunnel network, extending deeper beneath the forest than anyone realized. Excavation crews began drilling through blocked corridors within hours. What they uncovered over the following week transformed the investigation from a regional serial murder case into one of the most horrifying criminal discoveries in modern state history. Behind a collapsed concrete wall nearly 60 feet underground, investigators discovered a massive concealed chamber connected directly